Trump is dissatisfied. Dissatisfied with President Zelenskyy, dissatisfied with Putin. In fact, even Musk doesn't meet his approval. Time until the next presidential election is relentlessly ticking away, yet progress remains elusive.
Zelenskyy, I see, is now trying to back out of the rare earth metals deal. If he does that, right now, he's saying, I want to reconsider the terms. He wants to become a NATO member. But he never will. He understands that. So if he decides to revisit the deal, he's going to have big problems.
Hello, my name is Kateryna Soliar, and there will be no usual countdown of time because here, as in a vacuum, only one time is frozen: 24 hours left. We may have set the clocks forward for daylight saving time, but that extra hour has brought us no closer to peace. The peace that Donald Trump is tirelessly working toward.
The president is making an incredible effort to secure a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. And he has expressed his dissatisfaction with statements from leaders on both sides. He has spoken about what he believes needs to happen for the war to end. He continues to push forward with determination. And so do our teams.
He is working. Sounds like a sermon. We've heard something like this before, haven't we? And yet, I like this sermon much more. While Trump demands a non-existent debt from Ukraine, whether it's $120 billion or $350 billion, for weapons that were neither loaned nor sold to us, but were given to help defend our territories, some of these weapons never even left U.S. arms factories. While Trump attempts to amend the rare earth metals agreement, he is subtly pushing to include all of Ukraine's mineral resources or even every single nuclear power plant, thereby funneling both funds and control to foreign interests. At that very moment, Pastor Mark Burns, who is known as Donald Trump's personal spiritual advisor, or at least that's how Time magazine referred to him in 2016, after visiting Ukraine and witnessing the devastation in Bucha, Irpin, and Borodianka, told Donald Trump, Ukraine is not asking you for money.
The war in Ukraine is about more than Democrats or Republicans, left or right. You may not like Trump or Zelenskyy, but real people are dying. 20,000 children have been kidnapped and taken to Russia. 300 women were recently raped, according to religious leaders from various faiths. 700 religious buildings have been deliberately destroyed because, more often than not, they are the only source of hope for the Ukrainian people. Innocent civilians were shot in the head from behind. Their hands were tied.
Pastor Burns learned all of this after his visit to Ukraine. That's why we keep talking about inviting Trump. Watching Instagram stories is important, of course, but seeing Russia's atrocities with your own eyes and speaking to those who survived them, it's impossible to remain indifferent. So, what else did Mark Burns say? That soldiers on the front lines aren't asking for money. They're asking for 1,000 tanks, 300 F-35s and air defense systems to shoot down drones targeting civilian buildings and killing innocent people. Weapons. They're asking for weapons, not money. Burns also mentioned the propaganda pushing Trump toward Russia. He reminded everyone that it was Trump who first authorized lethal aid to Ukraine and insisted that it would be President Trump who ends this war. We'll see. We'll see. Here in Ukraine, everyone thanks President Trump and the United States for supporting Ukraine. And we can only add, we will continue to do so, as long as America continues to stand with Ukraine. But what do we know about Pastor Burns, one of Trump's close allies? First, that Mark Burns supported Donald Trump even before the elections. Pastor Mark Burns is leading the fight for America and has my total and complete support. He is a good man, a hard worker, and he will never let you down, Trump wrote about him in 2022 on Truth Social. Trump also noted that Burns has been with me from the very start of our Make America Great Again movement. The state newspaper reported that Burns frequently represented Trump at rallies and played a key role in organizing meetings between Trump and black pastors prior to his presidency in 2017. However, in 2016, Burns admitted to falsifying parts of his biography after CNN exposed discrepancies. His church's website claimed he had served 6 years in the U.S. Army Reserve and held a Bachelor of Science degree. In reality, he was never in the Army Reserve, only in the National Guard, from which he was discharged in 2008. As for North Greenville University, he attended for just 1 semester. Pastor Burns was invited to Ukraine by the chief rabbi of Ukraine, Moshe Reuven Azman, to participate in an interfaith religious forum in Kyiv and visit Bucha, Irpin, and Borodianka.
At my invitation, a special guest has arrived in Ukraine, Pastor Mark Burns, the personal spiritual advisor to President Donald Trump. He is a well-known figure in religious and political circles in the United States, whose voice today carries weight in shaping America's new strategy and policy.
It's not a visit of Trump, but of someone close to him. That's equally important since Keith Kellogg no longer wields the same influence.
Pastor Burns is someone who has the ability to be heard where major decisions are made. And I believe that the voice of truth from Ukraine will reach the very heart of America's new leadership.
Of course, I can't say for certain that Trump will completely change his mind by tomorrow. However, gaining just one more ally within his team is already a positive step forward. It signals a shift, however small, in the right direction and could pave the way for more substantial changes in the future. Especially considering the latest statements from the U.S. President aboard Air Force One, on his way back to Washington after a round of golf with Finnish President Alexander Stubb and Senator Lindsey Graham. Once again, we heard rhetoric about Russia as a country, including claims that Ukraine and Russia are moving step by step toward peace, but, he says, the real obstacle is the incredible hatred between their leaders. Let's be clear, Putin denies Ukraine's right to exist. He wants to destroy a sovereign, independent state. The entire country, completely. To wipe cities off the face of the earth. To likely kill the entire Ukrainian population. This is not an argument, this is our reality. Of course, we hate everything connected to Russia.
Can it be said that your relationship with Putin is now at its lowest point?
No, I don't think so. I don't believe he won't keep his word. I've known him for a long time. We've always gotten along, despite the conspiracy. Russia, created by Clinton, Schiff, and all these crazy people. So, I think he will agree. But if not, I will be disappointed by some of the things he's said over the last day or two about Zelenskyy. Because he believes Zelenskyy is untrustworthy. But you have to make a deal with him, whether you like him or not.
I don't know about a deal, but for one night, Putin did give Trump a break from the Shaheeds instead of a 30-day ceasefire. But by morning, the shelling of Kherson and Zaporizhia resumed, and Putin announced the largest spring draft. But of course, this is in no way related to his further plans for war with Ukraine. It's just a routine, albeit the largest one in history, search for conscripts who will somehow end up in Ukraine. They'll get captured and then beg to be sent back home.
Is there a deadline for Vladimir Putin to agree to a ceasefire?
It's a psychological deadline. If I decide they're just stalling, I won't be happy about it.
Do you think they're stalling right now?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think he wants to make a deal.
And then, speaking of a deal, Trump mentioned rare earths and the fact that Ukraine has no intention of signing it, even though Trump speaks of it as a done deal.
And Zelenskyy, by the way, I see he's trying to back out of the resource agreement. And if he does, he's going to have problems. Big problems. We made the deal, and now he says, I want to renegotiate. He wants to join NATO. He will never join NATO, he understands that. So if he wants to renegotiate the deal, he'll face big problems.
As of now, I can say that Ukraine and the United States have held the first round of consultations on a new version of the agreement on rare earths, announced Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiga. Whether it's final, that's another question.
I can confirm that on March 28, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs received a revised and updated version of the agreement concerning mineral resources. This new text includes key modifications and will be carefully reviewed to ensure alignment with our national interests and objectives moving forward. The so-called agreement, from the American side through diplomatic channels. As is known, the Ukrainian side was ready to sign the previously drafted framework agreement. Now we have received a proposal for further development and, accordingly, a new version of the agreement. We have our own established legislation for processing such documents, and all the necessary procedures have already been carried out in order to initiate the required internal state processes. This ensures that everything is in line with our legal framework and that the document will be properly reviewed and addressed according to our national protocols. I also confirm that we have already started consultations with the American side regarding the text of the agreement. One round of consultations has already taken place. The Ukrainian side is committed to concluding a document that will mutually serve the national interests of both the United States and Ukraine. We believe that the text of the agreement, which outlines the further enhanced presence of major American businesses, will also serve as a significant contribution to strengthening Ukraine's security infrastructure. This collaboration will not only benefit our economy but also bolster our defense capabilities. This is always important, the strengthening of American business presence in Ukraine. Therefore, this process will continue, and we will work with our American colleagues to reach a mutually acceptable text for signing.
In recent days, there have been many threats from Trump. After Ukraine and Russia, he started threatening with tariffs in Europe, but in the end, he received assurances that similar tariffs would be imposed on American goods. The EU has prepared a plan for strong countermeasures against US tariffs, but they don't want to apply them yet, hoping for a negotiated solution, as stated by European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. She also mentioned that the EU has all the necessary tools to protect itself from new US tariffs. New US tariffs could be imposed on semiconductors and medical products. In response to these new tariffs, the EU will focus on developing its internal market and relations with other partners. The EU intends to negotiate tariffs from a position of strength, based on the size of its market and technological achievements. You may remember how Emmanuel Macron once lightly supported Donald Trump, but now, according to a poll, loyal France is ready to boycott American goods. 57% of French people are willing to boycott American products or services in the coming months. 62% overall support the idea of a boycott. 32% are already boycotting American brands, especially Coca-Cola and McDonald's. 26% of French people have stated they will definitely boycott American products in the near future. And 31% say they are likely to. The same story is unfolding in Canada, where Trump constantly threatens to annex it and make it the 51st state of the US, despite Canada's will and desire. In 2 Canadian provinces, alcoholic beverages are sold exclusively in specialized stores. In Quebec, it's SAQ. In Ontario, it's LCBO. And as reported at the request of the Quebec government, starting in March, they removed all American products from the shelves of stores and from the website as well. They are also halting deliveries to agencies, grocery stores, bars, and restaurants. Additionally, the import of all American products intended for the Quebec market has been stopped. It turns out that all of Trump's threats lead him nowhere, achieving no real results or progress. As a result, anti-Russian advisors to Trump are gaining influence in the United States. At least, that's what the Wall Street Journal claims. This is also linked to the fact that negotiations regarding the resolution of the conflict in Ukraine are not yielding significant results. The head of the Analytical Center, Glenn Howard, stated that anti-Russian sentiments in the White House are growing stronger, pointing to the recent statement from the US president on his social media, where he mentioned Russian aggression while justifying claims to Greenland. Experts consider this statement an unusual remark, specifically directed at the Kremlin. Howard also says that such statements reflect the increasing anti-Russian mood among the president's advisors. But when the tornado gains momentum to wipe out the Russian world, it's hard to say. However, whenever that happens, I'll be here to inform you that peace is just 24 hours away, and the countdown has already begun.